Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Victory Talks. We've got a pretty awesome guest. You might even remember him from about a year ago, Tom Morrison here. And Tom is obviously in the association world, but today specifically, we're going to talk about personalgdp.com. And I'm really excited about his actual title there, which is Chief Energy Officer, which is pretty unique. And as always, we could all use a ton of energy in our daily lives. So without ruining and spoiling anything along these lines, let's go ahead and have Tom jump in and tell us briefly what personalgdp.com is.
So, hey, Bill, thank you for having me in the show today. Personalgdp.com really comes from kind of my life story. So many people have looked at my life and said, Tom, you always live this energized life. You always seem to be on the positive end of things, and you live a great quality of life. And so I finally said, you know what, I need to turn around what's working in my life and the things I've seen working in other people's lives and turn it into a platform that gives everybody a process to really drive the quality of life they want. Because remember, your quality of life is not what you do. I know some people do some pretty awesome stuff, but their quality of life stinks. But quality of life is how you feel. And so what Personal GDP does, it allows you to rate yourself in 16 different core areas that I think drive your quality of life. And we can kind of unpack those as we go down this path, but it allows you to rate them, and then it calculates what your personal GDP is on a scale of 1 to 10. And believe me, if you do the rating and you have a 5.0 quality of life rating, personal GDP rating, you're probably going, that sucks, So it really gives you perspective and where you need to work to improve your quality of life.
I would love to dig into your story a little bit more. Maybe that's for another time. That helped actually prepare yourself for personalgdp.com. But if there's one thing from your past that you would say that essentially helped you create this, inspired this, what would it be?
It would be just having perspective and a path, because everybody, when they don't have a plan and they don't have a program that helps them implement that plan. And the moment I started having goals, discipline, and perseverance, believe me, that's what GDP stands for: goals, discipline, and perseverance. The moment I created a program to do those three things effectively, it helped me stay on target to where I wanted to end up. Because we always hear it: no plan, no place.
That's true. And a lot of times people misinterpret motivation and discipline.
Right.
And one thing that I've always been saying, and probably you say a lot better and more eloquently than I do, is that you don't need to be motivated every single day, but you do need to be disciplined. And that's where that process comes into play, where I could wake up one day and be like, I don't really want to make 10, 15 cold calls. But if I have a process in place and I stay disciplined to that process, I'm going to get it done still.
Well, it goes back to working out, something as simple as that. If you're going to want to lose any matter of inches or weight in your body, it's imperative that you have a daily discipline, because it takes about 60 to 90 days to see that effort turn into actual fruit. And so, but you can't get there without having a program that helps you do it every single day and document it so you stay accountable to that. And that's what Personal GDP does for your quality of life.
So you keep mentioning quality of life, and that ties back to the emotions that person is feeling. So obviously this helps your personal GDP will also help you develop your emotional intelligence, I would assume, which is a big thing nowadays. Can you go into a little bit about the, one part of the program that could help drive more energy?
Right? So here's the thing. Everyone's quality of life is boiled down to 4 core areas. Everybody's looking for connected relationships, whether, marital, dating, and or personal relationships with family, kids. So connected relationships, financial freedom, energized health, and fulfilling career. All 4 of those together. And usually in somebody's life, 1 or more of those are out of sync. And that's what's true. Everybody thinks having financial freedom is quality of life. It isn't. It's a mask for deeper problems, because your relationships may stink. You may have horrible health. So, but the program gives you a chance to focus on those 4 areas. And that's why I broke it down into personal GDP. So I'm a big believer that you have to have at least 1 goal for each of those areas: health, financial freedom, energized health, and fulfilling career. You'd have 1 simple goal you want to, like mine is to totally be out of debt by the end of this year. Relationships, I want to get to know some of my friends in my neighborhood a whole lot better. So they need to be accomplishable goals, not grandiose things. Because if you keep making simple goals each year, guess what? In 5 years, you'll start to see a mushroom effect of things start happening in a positive way in your life. So that's what the program does. It helps you set those goals. It helps you rate and document them and see your progress along the way.
So you're mentioning goals, one for each of them.
Hmm.
Do you also believe in the fact that if you set a lofty goal, sometimes it can be demotivating, where you can break that goal down into simpler steps to help you achieve it?
Absolutely. I mean, if I had 200 grand in debt and I said, I want to be out of debt by the end of this year, probably not going to make it. But what I need to say is, okay, I'm 200 grand in debt. I'm going to pay off at least my bottom two credit cards at the end of this year. It's measurable, achievable, and I can reach it. So I think that's the key is you got to make goals achievable. You don't want to make them unachievable because guess what? It gets discouraging. That's what keeps people from setting goals, right? Because they don't want to
Exactly.
fail. So you got to make goals. And here's the thing, most people don't have to change their life dramatically overnight.
No.
You just need to pick some simple things, the low-lying fruit, because once you accomplish them, you feel energized and ready to go. And then you say, okay, what do I want to accomplish next? So I tell people you need to have a 5-year plan to be looking at and work backwards to achieve those simple goals.
100% agree with you. And the only thing that I might say as a caveat is for that 5-year plan, I think the world now is moving so quickly that it might even be a 3-year plan. But
Correct.
as long as you're flexible on it, then I think you're great. You can have 3, 5, 10-year plan. Just be, flexible and agile when it comes to that.
I
What you
agree.
also said is really important, right? Coming up with that actual discipline, the process, the plan, taking your goals and breaking it down. So this is a business podcast, and what you mentioned there is probably the number one thing that I don't see and hear in the conversations that I have that most businesses are doing with their actual goals.
Right.
Take it from the events world, for example. They say, I want 200 exhibitors this year. Okay, well, how are you going to do that? They don't break
Right.
it down like what you're saying. So I think that's really important. One other thing that you had mentioned to me previously was that this is also a software.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Can you dive into how this software actually benefits, how they can access it, what they can do with this?
Yeah. So when you go into the software program, it allows you to select the current year and put in your goals for each of those 4 areas we talked about. Then it asks the question, what hurdles are going to be in your way to reaching those goals? Because that's a big thing to identify, so you know what you're running into. And then from there, you'll begin to rate yourself on a weekly basis in 16 core areas. And I can break those down for you real quick. So the first section you're going to break down is how effective am I in reaching my goals in those 4 areas. Section 2 is the discipline. Your success to get in those goals achieved are controlled by 4 factors: how you spend your money, how you invest your time, the people you're surrounded with, and the decisions you make in relation to those. So you're going to rate yourself in those 4 areas. The third area is the characteristics you got to have in order to make that happen. You got to have an ability to adapt. You got to have a good communication skills, be able to persevere through it, and you got to have a good attitude. Good attitude. Those are the 4 characteristics that anybody that has a good quality of life has. The last one are what I call intangibles. I added these into the GDP system later on. These are 4 intangibles that you have to have if you're going to just reach anything. One, you got to believe in yourself. You can't get anywhere that you want without believing in yourself. You got to have the emotional ability to reach your goals. Some people don't have the emotional intelligence to get there. You got to have the emotional ability. You got to have the physical ability. And I use a simple example of Shaquille O'Neal woke up one day and said, you know what? I want to win the Kentucky Derby as a jockey. He's probably not going to do that because he's not physically fit to get on a horse to do that. So you got to be physically in a position to do that. And the last one is the most important of all of it. You got to wake up with an absolute hunger and passion, hunger to go get what it is you want to have. Like you just mentioned in business, if you don't have the hunger to bird dog and prospect with 30 phone calls a day to get your appointments, to close your sales, you're never going to get there because you don't have the hunger. So the system lets you rate yourself in those 16 areas on a 1 to 10 basis, with 1 being bad, 10 being I'm awesome at it, feel awesome. And then it calculates your personal GDP of that as a total. And then that's what your personal GDP is for that moment in time. And the system even has a chart on your dashboard that shows you a graphical depiction of where you're at each of those ratings.
It's important to self-actualize, right?
Mm-hmm.
Understand your strengths and weaknesses. And I don't think as a society in general, we do that enough. I think we're also afraid to admit to ourselves that maybe we're not as emotionally intelligent as we think. Maybe we don't have X, Y, and Z, and that we need to improve upon it. So that's really awesome that you're helping them to self-actualize in the beginning of the program to get to where they need to.
Right. Well, here's the cool thing about what you just said. It is the perfect mirror because my association does a executive training program,
Mhm.
and I don't have them do it in the system, but I have them do it on a spreadsheet, a link that I give them to rate themselves. And then I calculate the average ratings for the group so they can see as a group, how are the executive team doing? Well, when I get these individual ratings, I'm never amazed at how many of them were like 5.6, 6.2. And what I hear from those people is, Tom, this is the first time I actually got a chance to see where am I failing and need improvement to actually improve my quality of life. Because when you rate yourself on how good on a scale of 1 to 10, do you think your communication skills are? And let's say my communication skills really are horrible. Then you get to make choices to improve that. Maybe it's I really have problems with change, so I don't have the ability to adapt. But it really helps you identify and give you perspective on where do I need to improve to maximize my total quality of life? Because at the end of the day, that's what everybody's searching for, is quality of life, and in any respect.
It is. Everyone used to say what back in the day was, $75,000 and you'll achieve that quality of life that you want, right? That financial freedom that's going to give you the access to whatever it is that you're seeking. I don't necessarily think there's a number. It's obviously different for every individual, every family that's out there. But that quality of life is extremely important because it's about the quality of life that you want,
Right.
not as a generalization. I think that's what's so awesome about personal GDP is it really is all about yourself.
Right.
So one question that popped in my mind, and this is not to diminish any value whatsoever of this, but it may pop into the audience's mind, is what's the difference between this and a life coach or a business coach or things like that?
Well, see, a life coach and a business coach is still very important. I'm a certified life coach. This is kind of where my passion came through. And so they're very important to give you that personal connection. What you don't get from that is the ability to rate yourself on these core areas. And then the other thing that the program provides you is to be able to see when you click submit your personal GDP and you see that you're a 6.3 and you're like, man, that's not good. And then you look to the right, what you're going to see as well is the average rating of all users in the system for the overall rating. And you'll see that say it's a 6.4. And you're like, well, gosh, I'm not doing too bad. Because here's what we all feel in that moment, Bill, when we're not feeling good about something. We feel like we're the only one going through this. We feel alone. Aloneness is one of the top epidemics in our country right now, emotionally driven by COVID. So when you see that, you're like, I'm actually not doing too bad given. So it gives you perspective. I don't say it compares you. It gives you perspective. But here's the other thing. When you look at your individual ratings on how well you're doing financially, how you're doing in relationships, you also get to see what the average rating for each of the areas is for all users. So it really gives you a chance to dissect how you're doing in relation to other people that are similar to you.
That's great because everyone honestly wants to benchmark themselves against something.
Yeah.
It's just how we are, and it's human nature.
Well, we count calories. We have sleep scores, believe it or not.
Okay.
We count our steps. And so now there's a system out there that allows you to really connect in with what's my quality of life feel like from a number standpoint.
So how do you envision this being part of augmented reality or meta? I'm bringing this into a technology standpoint because I always now just envision this as I'm wearing my AR glasses and I see, oh, they're a 4.2, they're a 5.6.
Well, think about from a business standpoint. If let's say your business, you got 80 employees and you have them all go out and take this and you look back and the average rating for your company in the areas of I believe in myself is like a 4.2. You got a lot of people that's got something going on inside that if you could tap into that and provide a resource to help them then believe in themselves, it would exponentially probably drive your company. Because here's what you can't do. You can't give what you don't have. And if you don't believe in yourself, you can't really sell anything to get other people to believe in stuff. Because one, they're not going to believe in you because they can see right through your say called fake confidence and stuff. So it allows an organization to have their pulse on how their people are doing from how they feel about themselves in all these core areas. And they can actually bring resources that can help improve their people's quality of life, which is important.
So let's go into confidence and energy a bit, right? Obviously, I'm feeling more energized every single time I talk to you, which is fantastic, which is why you're so good at this. But from a confidence standpoint, I go back and forth. The old saying of fake it till you make it.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, here's what I always learned years ago. When I grew up in an age where they said, you know what, you got to know who. It's all who you know. And my follow-up is, well, when you get in front of who you know, you better know what.
It's true.
So so you can fake it until you start to make it, but eventually the faking will always run its course, and eventually you got to know what you're good at. Especially today with technology, people
Yeah.
can kind of see right through you, especially people up the upper scale, they can see right through you. So faking it till you make it goes a certain path, but then eventually you got to have the knowledge and the people skills. And because here's the thing, most people, as you go up the food chain and the ladder in any corporation, they're not getting fired or let go for lack of technical skills. They're getting fired and let go for lack of emotional skills, emotional intelligence. And most people today, especially young people, aren't leaving their jobs, they're leaving their boss.
Mhm.
And that's why there's a lot of effort going on now to train your executives on these types of things to make them whole and personally happy and show them how they can have a fulfilling life, because now they're going to be able to create fulfilling lives for the people. Because you don't want a boss, you want a coach. Every leader in today's market as a manager or supervisor should never be a boss. They should be a coach that empowers, energizes, and pulls teams together to accomplish a common goal.
I always love it when you speak in those terms, because I am always adamant about it. I'm not your manager. I'm not your boss. I'm your leader. And
Right.
the leader does many different things than what a manager does. You know, anybody, honestly, in my opinion, can be a manager and look at numbers and look at schedules and do all those things. But a
Right.
leader is a coach. So
Right.
I'm totally with you on that. And I always love it when you say those things, because it's like, yes, someone else out there is saying it that's even better at saying it than I am. So let's go.
Well, the common phrase I say to most anybody that works for me is, look, I'm your leader. I'm going to work with you, not over you. But
Yep.
here's what I don't want you to ever do. And you're in control of this, but don't ever force me to be the boss.
Oh,
Put me in a position to force me to have to be the boss, because the boss is going to probably fire you. So work hard, be accountable, and let's do it. And I'm going to give you all the chances to be empowered and own your spot. I'm not going to lord over you, but just don't put me in a position to have to be the boss because you're trying to not do your job as best you can.
a million trillion percent. Love it. All right. So coming back to personal GDP,
Mm-hmm.
obviously all this is still related to it, but coming back to specifically, how can someone get involved in working with you or signing up for the software, or not even just from a personal level, but from a business level too?
Well, here's the cool thing. So personal GDP, you just go out to personalgdp.com. I wanted to make this so affordable that a high school student that wants to prepare for his life could afford it on minimum wage. So it's $1 a week. It's $25 for the first 25 weeks. And you get the first 3 weeks for free. You get to test it out before we even ask you to pay that. And you pay that, and then you're in, and then there's videos that tell you how to use the system and everything. And then you just start rating yourself every single week. Now, here's the cool thing. Inside Personal GDP is a 25-week challenge. And that 25-week challenge is the 25 chapters of my book, the dash, how to make your obituary not suck. And it's 25 lessons that I've got 25 short 4 to 5 minute videos that unpack the chapter, and then you read the chapter in PDF form. And at the end of each challenge in the chapter is a box where you put in what behavior changes or steps am I going to take this week to then move towards my goals after what I just learned. So it's kind of a 25-week 360 view of your life and through my eyes and the things I'm teaching to help you get the quality of life that you want. So you just go to personalgdp.com. It's all self-explanatory, and you can just run from there and start building the life that you want.
Now, do you offer this as also from a business standpoint? So, for example, let's say if I wanted to sign up all the employees from Epic, is there an opportunity to do that, or should we just have them go in individually?
Well, that's kind of a next stage. But
Okay.
what you can do is if someone wanted to sign their people up and do that, they could basically, we're having added to the system where you can click, you can establish a group code. And if everybody puts in the group code in their group code box, they would see on their dashboard how they rate. And you would as a leader of that company, you'd be able to see the ratings of people just like them in your company. But it establishes a code that shows on the dashboard. Like right now, we've got the dashboard, we got the code association in there. So anybody that's an association executive can put association in the group code, and on their dashboard, they would see what all association execs like them
That's
rate
fantastic.
in the key areas. So it does allow you to grab some common people and it puts them in a crowd.
As mental health becomes a larger and more prominent topic, as well as it should be, I see this as a huge benefit and value add-on when you're hiring new employees, when
Mhm.
you're, talking to your current employees and saying, you know what, we're investing in you, and we now have a personal program here,
Mhm.
personalgdp.com, to
Mhm.
help you gain the value of life that you actually, and quality of life that you want. So that's fantastic. Now, how do you keep them engaged, so to say? So is there an accountability factor inside of there to make sure that they're logging in each week, or making sure that they're on top of their own, obviously, personal GDP?
Well, you get communication emails from us if you haven't logged your GDP in every week, because that's the goal, is to get people, because this goes back to the discipline. So
Mhm.
you need, so you need to be looking in the mirror every single week at these different things. And so in the program, we encourage you on Sundays to sit down for 5-10 minutes. That's all it takes, and just log in, look at different areas, and rate how you feel in each of those given areas every single week, and then look at your dashboard and see how you're progressing. So we've got a communications platform in there that sends out emails, and then we traditionally will try and send out an email every other week, that has a link to one of the videos, just to share what's coming up next week.
Great. I mean, for $52 a year, you can't beat that.
Yeah,
So I
change.
know I'll be signing up right after this, and then I'm going to try and get some of the other employees to sign up, even if we sponsor it for them. So that's fantastic. All right. So without giving away any of your complete secret sauce, or even maybe just quote from your book, let's leave the audience with, one motivation, one energizing, Tom Morrison quirk that can get us going for the entirety of the day.
Well, here's what most people don't know. We're on the front stages. I say this in every conversation. We're at the front stages of one of the largest economic growth periods in our history between now and the end of this decade. Demographically, we're set up for that. Some people are struggling through where we're at right now because of COVID, but really it's going to grow here in the not too distant future. And what are you doing to get as much of that as possible for the quality of life you want? And so I would encourage everybody, wake up every day for hunger to go get what it is. Set your goal, determine the disciplines, persist through it, and you will get what you want if you run for it hard enough.
Love it. As always, thank you, Tom. It is truly my pleasure to have you on here. And again, I think we're going to have you on there again for something, because you're always coming out with something new.
I love
It's
it, Bill.
fantastic.
This world around us we see is so much chaos, and I try and leave people that there's chaos in every decade. And so don't let what's in front of us scare you. We're going to move through this stuff, but the question is how will you navigate it to make it good for you?
Great. Well, thank you, Tom.
All right, Bill.
Thank you, personalgdp.com. Everyone, please check it out. We'll go ahead and post the link there in all of the details. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot, Bill.